Thank you, and thanks very much for the invitation to speak here this evening. We've worked with all of you a great deal in the People's Assembly, and I think that some of the work that we did produced some of the biggest demonstrations in favour of the NHS in this country that we've ever seen. So I look forward both to the discussion tonight and to furthering that work in the future. Now, let me just say a few words to begin with about West Streeting. What is there to say about West Streeting? Well, West Streeting is very shiny, it seems to me, when he appears on television. He always looks as if he's been hit by a rotary buffer just before appearance. Some people say that he was made by the same person that made Pinocchio. Other people say, no, that can't be true because Pinocchio's nose lengthens when he's lying. But with West Streeting, I think we just have to take it that when his lips are moving, he's lying. And he's lying in particular about the NHS. He says, for instance, that it's not just a question of money, but it is just a question of money to begin with. You cannot make up for a lack of a properly funded, publicly owned health service simply by berating the staff about working harder or more efficiently. I am absolutely certain that West Streeting does not apply this particular attitude in any other aspect of his life. I do not believe that when he needs to call out an emergency plumber, he says, let's get the cheapest one that we possibly can and just tell them to work harder. I don't think that's his approach to that. When he wants a builder, I don't think he just gets the cheapest, least qualified builder that he can find and shouts at them a lot about working harder or better. I think he looks for the best builder, and if he has to pay money for that, I think that's exactly what he does. Certainly, this government doesn't apply the rule that money doesn't matter when it comes to defence spending. Then money very definitely matters. It matters that they pour a historic amount of money into defence at the moment. They do not say, let's have a less well-armoured tank or a smaller gun, or just give the soldiers sandals to go out in. They actually spend the money. So the beginning of this is that the money has to be spent. Now, some of it was spent under the Blair government, but it didn't do all that it should have done because it got shoveled into management levels of the NHS, not into the pay and the provision for frontline staff. So it's saddening to see that West Streeting's go-to scheme for the health service is the one that dramatically failed under Tony Blair. A quarter of a century ago, this is a generation-old scheme which failed under Tony Blair. The person that got it to fail, Alan Milburn, is back with West Streeting, and he will make it fail again. So we have an enormous task in front of us. And I just want to talk about some of the ways that I think we should go about campaigning. Now, we find in the People's Assembly, and I'm sure that you find too, that in the last 12 months, the political oxygen in terms of mass demonstrations and mass political action is in the Palestinian movement and in solidarity with the Palestinians. Now, that's simply a fact of life, and it's not a fact of life that we should apologize for or feel sorry about. This is a historic movement, 22 national demonstrations in just over 12 months. You have to go back a very long time in British history to find anything like that, back before the Iraq War, perhaps back to the suffragettes, or perhaps back to the Chartists in the 19th century, before there has been a similar pouring of political activism on such a scale in such a short period of time. The sensible thing, I think, for all of us to do is to relate that movement to our issues. Welfare, not warfare, is an absolutely cutting-edge slogan for us now. When the government is doing what it's doing, when the talk around the globe is not just of war in the Middle East, but of war in Ukraine, of possible conflict with China, of a global surge in arms spending, the insistence that we should fight for public provision to be funded and for war not to be escalated is a critical issue. I also think that it's important that we understand that these issues that we're fighting on now are going to be central issues in the years to come. It cannot be true, and it will not be true, that the NHS can be further dismantled in this country without public outcry. It was Nigel Lawson who said that the religion of the British people is the National Health Service, and the problem for the Tories was that they were seen as unbelievers. I think that within a matter of years, this Labour government, unless it changes course, will be seen as an unbeliever of the national religion of the health service. And we have to bring that home. This is not a strong government. It was a leveless landslide. It was not a landslide which was supported by mass public opinion. It's been a disastrous 100 days because it's not just a tax on the health service, but on disabled people, on pensioners, on families, the poorest families with more than 2 children. This cannot be sustained in this country with the crisis that it faces, with the chunks that's been taken out of people's living standards, with the already threadbare situation with the public services. This cannot last, and we are in the business of making sure that it doesn't. Thank you very much.